Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentor and yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Today on the video, I'm going to do something special. I'm going to talk to you who is in school right now, maybe struggling with keeping your grades up. I'm going to tell you how your goal to become an airline pilot can be used as a weapon to increase your grades, to make everything more fun in school, and how to ultimately achieve that goal of becoming an airline pilot. So stay tuned.
Wind 31016, turn right, turn on.
Cleared to land, 31 right. Delta 260. Yes, sir, dude.
Right guys, so this initiative is called Aviationathome, and me, all of the other creators, and Stefan Strickland, who is the one who took the initiative to do this, we want to try to do one thing, and that is to motivate you guys. You might be sitting at home, you might be homeschooling right now, you might have a kind of an inkling that you want to go in towards becoming a pilot or becoming a cabin crew or something like that. And what I want to do with my episode is to tell you how I used that exact feeling in order to become much better, much more focused, and ultimately reach my target. My name is Peter. I am a 38-year-old line training captain. I fly the Boeing 737-800 all over Europe, and I've been working professionally as an airline pilot now for 18 years. This meant that I was only 20 years old when I started as a first officer flying the 737. But my journey to do that started much earlier. In fact, when I was in your age, my father had a private pilot license, which meant that he was flying small aircraft like a Cessna or a Piper around up in northern Sweden. And I got to follow him doing that. And that kind of ignited my interest, right? I started to feel like I really love everything with this. I like the machines, I like the technology, I like the science behind how an aircraft actually flies, and it just feels right to me. But my interest was really ignited when I was given a discovery flight by my parents for my 14th birthday, right? That's when I knew that this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. And the fact that I got to do that, the fact that I decided at such an early age that this is what I wanted to do, turned out to be probably one of the most powerful things that shaped my entire youth, okay? Because you know how you are in school right now, and your parents tells you that you need to do better in school, or you need to get better grades, you need to concentrate in school, but you can't really motivate yourself. You don't really see the point of it. You understand that this is like a job, you need to go to school every day, and you need to do reasonably well, and you need to come home, but you can't see the underlying reason for it. But if you have a goal, if you know that in order for you to become, for example, an airline pilot, you need to understand maths, physics, biology, you need to understand geography, you need to be good at gym class. If you understand that and why, it means that it's much easier to motivate yourself. And how do I know this? Well, that's because I used to be terrible, right? When I started off, when I got that discovery flight when I was 14, my grades in mathematics was not very good. They weren't terrible, but they weren't very good, all right? Maths was definitely not my cup of tea. But when I started talking to pilots out there, and I started talking to people who've gone through the training, they told me that, listen, when you start your pilot training, you are going to do all of your training in a relatively short time, as in 2 years. I know that sounds like ages for you, but 2 years is actually a very short time to learn all of these 14 subjects that you need to understand. So your instructors, they're going to assume that you paid attention in math class, in physics class. So you know what Newton's third law of physics is. You know what Bernoulli's theorem is. You know about what happens when a gas turns into a liquid. Things like that, because this is the fundamentals behind things like aerodynamics, for example. Understanding why lift is created by a wing, or why a cloud is formed, or what happens when a cloud is formed, what kind of energy is released. They won't have time to go in and tell you what you should have learned when you were in school. They will assume that you were listening, all right? So this means that what school actually is, and the way that you should be thinking about schools, is that every single subject you have, every class that you're taking, gives you a tool. That tool can be put into your toolbox. And that toolbox every single tool in that toolbox is going to be needed when you need to construct your flight training afterwards. All right, I cannot overemphasize how important that is. So if you think about it that way, next time that you go to math class, you realize that what you're doing is you're filing on that math tool that you will use. The same with physics, the same with geography, the same with gym, right? In gym, you need to be fit. You need to have good medical health in order to get your class 1 medical that you need to become a pilot. Now, this is what I understood. So that meant that from when I formulated the target that I want to become a pilot until I actually applied for flight school, I increased my grades almost 100%. I went from an average student to a top student. And that wasn't because I had it easy. No. In fact, I had loads of classmates. You know, the ones that just knows math intuitively without trying. I had to sit and I had to do my homework, and I had to do it again and again and again in order to get my brain to understand it properly. But it turns out that when you practice something and when you get good at practicing something, you can actually surpass the ones that just have it naturally easy. Because at some point you will come up against obstacles in school. And the more you're used to study, the more you're used to working hard in order to achieve something, the easier that hurdle will be to climb over, right? So I was working and I worked and I worked and I got rewards for it. I got better. My teachers saw that I was trying. They helped me. I got even better than that. So that meant that at the end, I knew I needed full, perfect grades in order to apply for this government-sponsored school that I got into in Sweden. I managed to get there based purely on tenacity, on willpower, because I saw that goal of becoming an airline pilot ahead of me, and that made it much easier for me to sit down at home and work those hard hours, and also to make the choices needed, right? Sometimes when you go through school, you need to choose certain subjects, so you need to choose certain paths in order to achieve what you want to do. When you don't know what you're working towards, it's really hard to make those choices, right? It is really hard. But when you know what you're trying to do, you know you want to be a pilot, it becomes much, much easier for you. Anything becomes much, much easier. So that's what I did. I got into flight school. I went through flight school and it was the most fun I've ever had in my life. And I had a possibility to apply to become an airline pilot when I was 20, and I managed to get in, which was the best feeling that you can ever imagine. There are some other things as well that you could be thinking about. So, for example, if you have a flight simulator at home, like X-Plane 11 or Microsoft Flight Simulator or something like that, you can actually use that to practice. And what I did, now I didn't have a fancy flight simulator like that, but I had a very simple one. And I had my father's theory books from when he became a private pilot. And I was reading through those books as well, trying to learn the theory before. And when you do that together with practicing in a flight simulator, it becomes so much more fun to fly that simulator because you understand what it is you're doing. You're not just going out doing loopings and rolls and then trying to land it. No, you're trying to do it in a more professional way. You understand how much thrust you need to set, or what flap setting you need to have, or what altitude you should be at when you're doing a circuit. And it just becomes so much more fun. All right? So that's one thing you can do. When you're around 15, you can consider doing gliding as well, flying gliders, which you can do. I think you can get a license when you're around 15 years old. And that is a great way of learning aerodynamics, meteorology, science of flight basically. And it will prepare you a lot for the training to come. And then I highly recommend you to go out and look in your country if there's things like air cadets, for example, that you can apply to. These are like groups that you can go to and talk to like-minded people and maybe go out and visit simulator centers or flight schools or even military airfields and see what is going on. These are great things to do in order to kind of nurture the flying bug and make you feel better about the target that you're reaching for. Okay? Now, how is it like to be an airline pilot then? Well, the only thing I can say is that I love my job. Like every job has its ups and downs, but being a pilot is pretty awesome. Like you get to go to work every day and work with fantastic people, motivated people, talented people. You get to fly all over the world, see different things. You get to see the most amazing sunsets, sunrises. Every day is different, right? Even though you might be flying the same route 2 days in a row, it's going to be completely different depending on traffic patterns, depending on what weather you have around you, who you fly with. So it's not like boring a job you go to and everything looks the same every day. No, this job is different all the time, okay? It's, you know, it's reasonably well paid as well. You have a lot of time off which you can spend with your family, which I do. But you also need to know that there are things like, for example, you are most likely going to have to work on holidays or birthdays and weekends. So there are things that is hard as well. But all in all, it's a pretty fantastic job. So if this is something that you think you want to do, you are only going to have benefits throughout schooling by having this as a target and working hard towards it. So I wish you the best of luck. If you have questions about this, file them in the comments below. If you want videos like this about aviation and what I do, then consider subscribing to the channel. And now I'll hand over to Stephanie for the next creative, which I hope that you'll be watching tomorrow. And go back and watch all of the others that have done this Aviation at Home initiative before me. There are people from all over the world, from all over, you know, different backgrounds, and they will be teaching you something unique, every single one of them. Enjoy.
The cool thing about aviation is there are a million ways that you can get involved. So up next, we head all the way over to Australia to talk to Stefan Drury about all the cool things you can do with a private pilot's license.
Right guys, I really hope that you liked that. If you want more content like that, more aviation content, well then, check this out. I hope that you have subscribed to the channel and that you've highlighted the little notification bell. See you inside of the Mentour Aviation app and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye-bye.